Anybody there know how to pronounce the last name of Andrew? Is it Zubrod?
That's correct. That's
Zubrod.
correct.
Thank you.
And Mayor, we are streaming live on YouTube, and you can have the meeting from here.
Thank you. Call this meeting to order. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask all the aldermen just to leave their screens on mute, and I'll read and say the Pledge of Allegiance for all of us. If you would put your hand over your heart, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Then share with you from the Constitution, the preamble. We, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. Would ask Ted Martin to come in and give the invocation.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Please join me in prayer. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day in the Ozarks, especially for a bright, sunshiny day in January. Father, we pray for our country as we work through some challenges and some times with a change in Washington, D.C. to even here in the state of Missouri. Pray for our governor, for our board, and for those serving in leadership. Father, we really invite you into this meeting this evening. We give thanks for a very great year, even through the challenges of COVID and other stuff, that we still were able to serve and enjoy the folks that came to visit us here in Branson, Missouri. Father, thanks for the 250 plus employees that work here daily to provide the services, and especially for Andrew for his work is one of those great examples. Father, thanks for his board for their time tonight. And again, we invite you into the meeting as well. Father, we love you, praise you in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ted. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
King,
Present.
Whitus,
Here.
Simmons,
Here.
Akers,
Here?
Skanes,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
C.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I welcome you to our board meeting tonight, a virtual meeting. I would like to ask the city clerk to read the instructions for this virtual meeting. Madam Clerk.
This meeting is being held virtually due to the COVID-19 virus and the recommendations of the Centers for Disease Control, along with the state and city emergency proclamations that are in effect. We will review our procedures for conducting tonight's meeting. Participants in this meeting who will be joining the meeting virtually include members of the Board of Aldermen and city staff. The microphones of all board members and staff members participating in the meeting should be muted at all times so as not to impede the ability of meeting participants and observers to hear the proceedings. Members of the board or staff who wish to speak will be recognized by the mayor. Members of the public were invited to speak by signing up prior to tonight's meeting by using a link to a speaker sign-up form for virtual meetings. Those who have signed up will be able to speak on the items they requested to speak on. Please note public comments will be limited to 5 minutes and discussion on all other agenda items will be 3 minutes unless additional time is allowed by the mayor. The speaker will be notified when there are 30 seconds remaining on their allotted speaking time. And Mayor, I would like to know at this time that we did not have any speakers signed up for this evening's meeting. The voting procedure for tonight's meeting will be by roll call vote on every action item before the board. The city clerk will call the name of each board member for their vote and will announce the results. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Alderman Milden, I call to your attention. Would you please present Andrew Zubrod of the Information Technology Department, the 2020 Employee of the Year. Alderman Milton.
How is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It is my privilege to present the City of Branson's 2020 Employee of the Year Award to Information Technology Technician Andrew Zubrod. The Employee of the Year is chosen by a committee from all the past employees of the month. This is the Employee of the Year. How exciting is that? Andrew was awarded the February 2020 Employee of the Month award for going above and beyond and by exemplifying the City of Branson's values. Andrew is always helpful, responsive, and courteous. City departments often ask a lot of him, sometimes interrupting him when he's working on one issue to help correct another. While it may be a stressful situation, he always remains calm, prioritizes requests, and follows through with a great attitude. On behalf of the Mayor, Board of Aldermen, City Administrator, and City staff, it is my honor to announce Andrew Zubrod as a City of Branson 2020 Employee of the Year. Congratulations, Andrew, and keep up the good work.
Thank you,
We'll give a
Alderman.
round
I've enjoyed
applause.
my time here at the city. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Andrew, thank you. Good job, Larry. Now the public comment section of our meeting. As you've heard from the clerk, we've had no one sign up for public comments. So we will go on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, do you have any, there's no speaker signed up there, so we would ask the board, are any items to be moved down from the board's perspective? Hearing none, I would ask the clerk to proceed.
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of a petition for consent of annexation for the property located at 189 Friendly Hills Drive, Branson, Missouri. Final reading of Bill number 5939, an ordinance approving the engagement letter with Cochran Head Vick and Company, PC, pertaining to auditing services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill number 5940, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the City of Branson for mutual aid and police services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. The floor is open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Mr. Skanes moved and Larry Melton second. All right. Would you now provide a roll call vote on the consent agenda?
King,
Yes.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The result of the vote is 6-0. It passes. Thank you.
Item number 5 under the regular agenda is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you provide the information?
Your Honor, this is a public hearing and presentation of the 2020 5-year TIF report on Branson Landing, Branson Hills, Aquarium at the Boardwalk, and the Branson Metals redevelopment projects.
I will now open this public hearing. Begin with a staff report from Jamie Roush, please.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
I am attempting to share my screen at the moment, so give me 1 second, please. I'll start from the beginning. Can you all see my screen okay?
I believe so.
Okay. I apologize for that delay. This is the 5-year increment report that we are required to do for the TIFs. We currently have 3 active TIFs, 1 that has expired. So I'm going to go through the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to discuss with you tonight about the TIFs, where we're at, and at the end, we're going to just look at the debt for the TIFs as well. So we'll start tonight with what a TIF is, and what a TIF is basically a financial mechanism for the economic development incentive within our city. And so a TIF is 23 years. This is really the process of what a TIF is. The city negotiates the TIF contracts. We have a TIF commission, and then the board has the final approval. So for the definition of a TIF, before I get into what really the terms are, a portion or all of the incremental taxes generated as a result of the development are captured and redirected to pay for the project cost of whatever that development will be. So the base and the increment, so 100% of the pilots, which for our city are the property taxes, and 50% of the economic activity taxes, which are the sales tax, for a regular normal TIF are captured and redirected to pay for the project cost for the development. A couple of things that you want to be aware of when you're looking at a TIF is it has to have a blight finding, and it has to pass the but-for test. And so for the financial world, the but-for test is evidence that the development would not occur without the public assistance. And so we go through a lengthy process to determine that. And then the blight finding is determined. And that's basically just the area qualifies for a blight finding due to the evidence that it is just kind of a, to put it in my own words, just an area that could not be developed, and it could be a nuisance and a public nuisance to our city. Let me keep going. And this is just a diagram that I put together just to show you what I just simply explained. The base is down here. You see the total revenue. So if we have a property that has a blight finding, it's past the but-for test. The appraisal value, the assessed value of the property is $1,000. The levy at that time is $5 per 100 of assessed valuation. The total tax revenue coming into our city would be $50 for that property. And then you go forward and you develop that property, and the total assessed valuation after that development is $100,000. The total levy is still the $5 per 100 of assessed valuation. Your total revenue is now went from $50 to $5,000, which for this particular example, the property tax, $4,950 of that would be redirected to allocate for the project cost for that TIF. Is there any questions so far? I will keep moving.
Any aldermen have any questions? Guess you proceed, Jamie.
Thank you. And this just talks about really the TIF area, the plan and the project, the redevelopment area, and what I kind of referred to on one of the first slides about the blighted or the conservation area, and the redevelopment plan and the redevelopment projects. I want to move forward so that I can start talking about each of our individual TIFs. So we have, as I stated earlier, we have 3 active TIFs and 1 that we have already closed. So we'll be going through all of those as well. Branson Landing TIF began in 2002, and it was amended in 2005. It did have a blight finding. It was 200 acres of lakefront, $176 million for the project cost, 4 projects in total, and all of them are complete. The city owns the land. And then we lease it to HCW, and you'll see those numbers here in just a few minutes. The landing is a unique TIF, state TIF or super TIF, in which the city pledged the revenues of all the uncaptured portions of the various taxes. Plus the state also gave an economic development tax of 1.5%. And here is for the last 5 years. So these are audited numbers, 2015 through 2019, and you'll see the breakdown of all the taxes that are captured. So if you're looking at these taxes, understand that the landing is a bit different because it is 100% of everything that comes in that you see here goes and is redirected back to the TIF projects to pay those that debt. We have general sales. I'll just run through it very quickly. The transportation tax, the county sales and jails tax, the county ambulance tax, the enhancement district, the economic development tax that I had referred to earlier that the state gave of 1.5%. The tourism, food, tourism lodging, TDD, which is the Transportation Development District. The master lease is what I referred to. That's $450,000 on top of a landscape rent fee. That's also $5,000. And you'll see that's the difference between 2016 and 2017 is the $5,000 additional monies. And then the pilot's tax, and that is the property tax, 100% for the landing that is captured is redirected to pay all of that debt. And then Curtis created these maps for us all so that you could visually see the TIF district and what all is included in there.
Excuse me, Jamie,
Yes,
would you go back one more slide?
yes.
Thank you. So the sales tax from Branson Landing, I mean, has really stayed flat, right, for the last 5 years.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's
Do you have any-
one of the things that I can say on that is some of the retail sales tours have gone out and they have been replaced with restaurants and amusement. And so whereas the numbers appear to be flat, you got to look at the development and how it's working right now. So you've got more tourism related items. So you could look at the tourism taxes there as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions on that? I will keep moving. We'll go to the Branson Hills. The Branson Hills TIF began in 2004. And one of the things I should have noted is on the 2005 Branson Landing, a TIF since it's 23 years, that TIF ends in 28. Okay, so the Branson Hills began in 2004, pardon me, and it's 23 years, so it ends in 27. It's a blighted area, 141 acres, $65 million of project cost, and 3 phases. And again, here's a breakdown of all the tax. The unique thing about the hills, one is it's a typical TIF that you look at. It's the 50% capture and not the 100. So we'll keep it at that. But this one is divided into 2 areas. And here in my department, we call it the north side, which is your Target side, and the Branson Hills Shops, which is your south side, which is Walmart. It's divided in 2 areas, but it still works the same. You'll see that the general sales, the transportation tax, a lot of the same taxes. The one exception that I will point out for the shops is that you'll see a CID TIF portion and then a CID portion. And that is split out because that CID portion, a TIF allows for professional fees to be paid, and everything for the CID portion in excess of 50,000, 100% of that goes. But they have secured 50,000 to pay for the audit fees. Now that is never, it's all the time that I've been here, it hasn't even been reached 50,000. So once it's about 25, I've seen 27. Once those audit fees are paid, then everything else gets moved over. So I just wanted to share with you that the titles could be a bit confusing, but I wanted to explain why that was.
Any questions? All right, proceed.
This is the north side. So Shops is the south side. This is Branson Hills north side. It works very much the same way. You have everything broken out for you over the last 5 years, and you can see the trends there as well. And then again, Curtis made these maps and he did a great job. It's very good to see a visual sometimes instead of just always numbers. So, and then here's the Branson Meadows. And if you all recall that we closed the Branson Meadows TIF a couple of years ago, but I still wanted to make sure, since it was within the 5 years, and give you a breakdown on where it was. It began in 95. It was a blighted area, 340 acres, $8 million project cost. The Branson Meadows TIF was wrapped up in a larger TIF, of which we've refinanced 3 times. And so the Branson Meadows plus a good portion of the Branson land in 2011 was all wrapped up into another bonding project, which you'll see here in just a little bit. And then here is a map of the Branson Meadows. And as I said, we closed that one in 2018. So we have currently three active TIFs. Oh, so here's our new one. This is Aquarium at the Boardwalk. And this is a pay-as-you-go TIF. So this one is a little bit unique to the city of Branson. It began in 2019. It was a blighted area, 1 to 1.64 acre portion of the full acre parcel. And you can see the aquarium, and it is a beautiful aquarium. And I myself love to go by it at night to see the lights. It's just something to see. The total project cost was almost 51 million. And so we don't have a breakdown of taxes as yet because they just started coming in. So what I wanted to show you for the aquarium is something that we have to go through here in our office because it's a pay as you go. So essentially the developers, they submit a list of all their expenses to us. And based on the criteria that was given and approved through this board and through this TIF and through the TIF commission, we go through and we certify that those expenses are correct and accurate and certifiable for the eligible expenses for this TIF. So I wanted to show you exactly what, as of October 8th of 2020, this is all of the certified expenses so far to date. Now, currently right now, we have about a $1.1 million of expenses that is on our desk right now that we're looking through to certify. But as of October the 8th, they had about $2.6 million remaining on that $7 million TIF. And so when the TIF dollars start rolling in, then we'll start paying out those certified expenses back to that developer. And then again, here is the map of the aquarium. And this is the final slide presentation. This is not the city of Branson's entire debt. We did hide some tourism tax debt and our energy efficient debt. That is simply because for this purpose, only the TIF debt was necessary to show you. But I wanted to give you a look to see the Branson Meadows TIF and the bond that I was just speaking of, the 2011 A bond. And it shows you when the TIF ended, the original issue amount, the remaining balance, and the maturity date on each of those debt issues. So that's what's really important. I want to emphasize that, you know, the Landing and the Hills TIF, they 27 and 28, they end, but they still have some debt that will not be ending at the time the TIF ends. So those are some of the things that are on our radar at the moment, so that we've already been talking to some of our financial advisors about when these TIFs come and are callable. I mean, when the debt comes and are callable, then we turn around and look at potentially refinancing to shorten that life and the maturity. So if you'll look at the 2015A Branson Landing debt, the remaining balance on that is 54.9. We refied that in 2015 and we shaved quite a bit off the debt and we cut 2 years off, but we still have several years to go. So those are the items that are on our radar with the TIF, looking at that, making sure that we shorten the life of that, and so that when the TIF ends, we can get the debt as close as possible so that we can use the money coming in for those development projects in other ways. And I said all of that very quickly. So if you have any questions, Larry, I see your hands.
Thank you, Jamie.
I can't see Larry for some reason on my screen.
Oh,
I see Julia and Jamie and Bob, but I see no one else. Maybe someone from the IT department can come down.
Yeah, when there's a presentation, that's going to be the primary focus. So you may not be able to see absolutely everyone while there's a presentation. However, when she ends it, you should
All right.
see that.
I'll see. All right.
Larry, did you have a question?
yes, please. Would you go back to that previous screen, please?
Yes, the debt screen? Sure.
Yeah, there you go. Branson Hills started out with a roughly $60 million in TIFs. And Jamie, as I recall, Branson Hills was approved with the only revenue from I think it was the Home Depot and at that time, an anticipated 60,000 square foot Walmart. With all the tax revenue that's been out there, and I mean, that's been going on now for 16 years. I'm surprised that the remaining funds, the remaining balance isn't a lower amount. Hasn't Branson Hills, as far as what they projected and initially passed the TIF on, and what the actual results have been over the last 16 years, hasn't the revenue been just substantially higher than anticipated?
So I can speak to the numbers themselves. I wasn't here when this TIF was created.
Okay.
However, yes, keep in mind this is 50%. But yes, the revenue has exceeded the original expectations, and that's one of the reasons why we had just refinanced. You can see there's a 2017 A and B as well, but it's the way the debt's structured and how that works. Now, we have brought before you all in the past several years some very large mandatory redemptions, and that's what gets the principal of that bond down. So when you're seeing all this, you want to look for, and here when I bring before you for the budget amendment for the mandatory redemptions, that is paying the principal off because the overflow of revenue has allowed us to pay more off on the principal amount. So we have to go according to the debt structure and the bond documents and how that is paid. And we do have a trustee that guides us, and we have the waterfall flow of funds. And I said all of that to say, yes, the revenue has exceeded expectations, and you will see that through the mandatory redemptions. Unfortunately, I don't have in front of me exactly how many we've done over the last 12 years that I've been here, but I know it's been several.
Okay. Are these individual buckets, for example, the Branson Hills revenue stays in the Branson Hills financed amounts? Or are these monies being used can they be used for other things?
No, the Branson Hills TIF dollars, the 50%, as soon as it comes in, it is automatically redirected to the Branson Hills TIF fund, of which then is transferred to the trustee, and the trustee turns around and pays that off according to the debt schedules and the flow charts that we have to pay it for. And that is that's looked over legally, it's looked over financial expertise, and we have to send it to the state every year to make sure that we are reporting this as expected.
Okay.
Does that help you answer your question?
Well,
I'm not sure if I answered it.
I think I'll just get into more detail. So I think what I'll do is just call up and set a time to sit and go through with this with you.
Certainly, we have a flow chart, and I can show you. I like the
Okay.
flow chart, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions?
Well, we're at that point in time. Have you finished your primary presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's time for, since there's no public that have made any requests on this, the aldermen have been asking questions as we go along, which is fine. Any other aldermen have any questions or comments in regard to Jamie's presentation?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the question to Jamie and follow up that Larry had a very valid point is that by the excess amount of revenue that's being flowed into these, that we are expecting an earlier than projected payoff, Jamie, hypothetical?
That will depend, excuse me, on if we can refinance and we can structure the debt that way. Now, any excess revenue on top of how we can pay our debt off goes into that fund, and that's why you see that fund balance large. So at the end of the life of those debts, all that fund money will go to pay the remaining balance. And,
Okay,
and what would probably be helpful to see the amortization schedules of that debt as well. So feel free to ask me for that, and I will get that for you.
Would you forward that to me? Jamie,
Yes,
would you
sir.
forward that to me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jamie, thank you for a very thorough report. lots of technical information. Obviously, you have requirements under governmental accounting, and you do have different silos of funds that you have to keep track of. And so I appreciate very much the work and the information you've given us. If any aldermen have any questions anytime, that Jamie and Stan have always been very, very helpful in making sure that we understand the finances. So the neat thing is that a long time ago, I learned the only way that you reduce debt is by paying it off. And we're slowly but surely getting our city in better shape, even during tough times. And I thank Jamie for her work and for the administration to keep on task for this. Thank you. I think we're ready to close the public hearing, and this public hearing is closed. The next item is item number 6, public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is a public hearing and first reading of Bill number 5941, an ordinance approving the annexation of the property located at 287 Hunter Avenue, Branson, Missouri.
Now begin with a special report. We'll open the public hearing first, and then we'll begin with special report from Joe Hornicle. He's put his makeup on, I think, first before he gets on.
I'm apologize, Mayor, members of the board. Good evening. How are you?
Good.
Good. This is an annexation for roughly about a 1/4 acre size parcel of property within the city limits. It's on the east side of Hunter Avenue, just south of Fall Creek Road, if you are familiar with that area. The applicant is looking to build about a 2,700 square foot single family residence within the property. Looking at their desired use as well as the surrounding properties, which are all also zoned low density residential, that matches the request before you this evening. Staff has reviewed the file and determined it is contiguous with the city limits, and there will be minimal impact created from this annexation. As a result, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have no public signed up to speak on this. Any aldermen have any questions?
Just what's something real quick, Mr. Mayor. Are they already receiving water and sewer from us, Joel?
It is available. They've submitted for a land disturbance and a building permit, and through that process, upon annexation, they will have the ability to connect to our sewer. And water will be provided by American Water.
Any other questions? All right. This public hearing is now closed. You have heard the first reading of bill number 5941. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Not sure who the second was. Jeff, will you?
Jamie, I think Jamie beat me.
Jamie, all right. Jamie was the second. So we have a motion and a second. No one has signed up. Any aldermen have any comments in regard to the motion before you?
I got one, Joel, for you. Do you, as a rule, or obviously you didn't on this one, but do you use the vote of P&Z and any comments from that? Is that something that you would, forward to us, just sort of let all the rest of the aldermen know how that went down?
Sure. So this is a request simply for annexation. And so therefore, this is something that didn't go through the Planning Commission. We will hear a zoning request in the future that will actually zone the property. You're correct that went through the Planning Commission. I believe that'll be on our next agenda at the 26th meeting in January.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any others? All right. Just as an FYI, Chad, right now my screen shows Jeff to be large, and then I've got 4 smaller pictures below. So I still don't see Larry or Bill. So we'll have to work on that. That'll be something for next time. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Approve.
Simmons.
Approve.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
sorry, and C.
Yes.
Thank you. That vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you. Ready to move on to item number 7. It's a first reading of a bill 5942. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5942, an ordinance approving the repeal of Plan Development PD-11-002, known as Branson View Cabins, and a zoning change to mixed use MU for the property located at 1901 Shepherd of the Hills Expressway, Branson, Missouri.
Okay. Begin with the staff report from Joe Hornicle.
Mayor, members of the board, this is about a 14-acre parcel that's near the intersection of Rourke Valley Drive and Shepherd Hills Expressway, in the northeast corner of that intersection. This is a property that, as stated in the title, was approved as a planned development known as Branson View Cabins back in 2011. However, the project never came to fruition, which was to include 38 nightly rental cabins. So the developer has been actively looking for opportunities of how they can develop the property, and now they're looking to potentially sell it. In conversations with the property owner, we all came to the conclusion that to provide the most flexibility for the property going forward, dropping the planned development and reverting it to one of our common zoning districts, in this case mixed use, would be the most appropriate way to get that flexibility going forward. So the Planning Commission reviewed this during their December meeting and recommend approval, as well as staff, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
You've heard the first reading of bill number 5942. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Julia,
Yes.
second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All right. All right. We have no citizens signed up, so any aldermen have any questions or comments in regard to this bill?
Yes, sir. I just, a question for Joel, just to refresh us, the definition of mixed use in that particular situation.
Sure. So it simply allows a mix of residential and commercial uses. There are opportunities for all sorts of commercial uses and all sorts of residential uses. However, these districts are typically seen in more dense residential areas, more commercial centers as well. But this entire area is zoned mixed use along the area between Gretna and Shepherd Hills Expressway, with the hope that it will spur more intense residential and commercial development over time.
Just a second. What do they project that they want to use this for, Joel? Or are they holding that close to the vest?
Well, they really don't know. Again, the developer's original intent was just to have nightly rental cabins. That just didn't work out for them. So now they're just simply looking to sell the property. And so without knowing who's going to purchase the property in the future, if anyone, we really don't know how it'll be developed at this time.
So if it is purchased, they have to come back to P&Z for a discussion of what's going to go on there, or?
Not necessarily. It just depends on what they're going to do. If they choose to develop it in some capacity that requires additional public hearings or additional processes, then yes. But if they choose to do a use that's allowed within the mixed use district, then they can just continue on with the building permit process and the normal administrative process of staff.
Okay. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Joel, I have a quick one for you. Yeah. If they didn't want to change from the PD, it still would have fit in with the mixed use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just with the planned developments, you know, they were used in the past as a development tool, as a property selling tool, to make properties look more attractive to future developers. They just really weren't utilized as they were really intended to be under the zoning code. You know, we do have a couple that were done correctly in the eyes of the zoning world, but this is definitely not one of them. So we're happy and very supportive to see this one go away and hopefully see the property develop under our normal zoning code.
Yeah, and it seemed sort of out of fit for a cabin project to have a PD.
Yeah, there really wasn't a public benefit. There really wasn't much complexity to it. We just simply had a zoning code that didn't allow for flexibility. So more often than not, it led people to a planned development, which was unfortunate. But now we've got a zoning code that's flexible and allows for a lot more opportunities for development. So, we're seeing a lot more revert to our normal zoning districts.
Gotcha. And it gives us consistency now throughout the whole area there then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a benefit. And, plan developments are a challenge for staff to enforce. And, it's essentially another set of rules for a property above and beyond the city's normal codes and regulations. So again, it simplifies things and yes, very much matches the surrounding properties.
A lot of neighbors saying it's not fair. Why does he get to do this and I can't?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to explain to people a lot of times who don't understand the difference between a plan development and normal zoning codes.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Joel.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, will you now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Approved.
Simmons,
Approved.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
D.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes. Thank you.
Ready to move to item 8, the first reading of bill number 5943. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction to this item?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5943, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Christian Action Ministries for the provision of services to provide temporary public assistance and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
We'll begin with a staff report from Ted Martin.
Mayor, members of the board, the city each year budgets to contract for services for temporary public assistance. In November of 2020, requests for proposals were received by the Outside Program Assistance Committee, and recommendations were made for money to be awarded to the following agencies for a total of $32,000. Those awards went to the Branson Arts Council for $3,000, Elevate Branson for $7,000, Faith Community Health at $12,000, Tenny Hills Library at $5,000, Women's Crisis Center for $5,000. The committee also recommended the city send out a second RFP to use remaining budgeted funds. The RFP was issued on November 10th with the due date of December 1, 2020. 3 additional RFPs were received, and since they met the intent and budgeted amount of the Temporary Assistance Committee, contracts were created for board consideration. The contracts listed under the detailed analysis outline the 3 agencies being awarded funds for services in 2021 fiscal year for a total award amount of $35,000. This brings the total amount requested for 2021 to $67,000, which is within the $70,000 budget for the program. Once the contracts are approved and executed, all the agencies will be allowed to turn in receipts for reimbursement from the contract execution date of December 31, 2021. This staff report addresses this item plus the next 2 as we recommend to move forward the award to Christian Action Ministries for $15,000, where they will use the city grant funds to provide funding for the purchase of food to assist Branson residents experiencing temporary crisis and economic hardship. The next item on the agenda will talk about the Salvation Army being awarded $15,000, where they'll use the grant funds to provide emergency housing for residents who find themselves displaced unexpectedly as its primary focus, and utility assistance and gas vouchers as its secondary focus. The Tenny Hills Library will be the third one you'll see tonight for an award of $5,000. This will use city grant funds to provide funding to purchase a selection of DVDs for children's educational programs and family-focused movies and cultural programs. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
We've heard the first reading of bill number 5943. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Got a second? Did you get that, Madam Clerk? All right.
Yes.
All right. Any, we have no citizens signed up. Any aldermen wishing to speak to this issue? Recall now, Ted has given a report that will cover number 8, number 9, and number 10 in this request. So, Mr. Milton.
Ted, I just wanted to tell you I appreciate you leading this group. I know you put your heart into it, and we had some good discussions on it, but I just want to tell you that community appreciates you.
Amen. All right. Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes. Thank you.
Ready to move to item number 9, bill number 5944. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction, please.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5944, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Taney Hills Library for the provision of services to provide temporary public assistance and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
You've heard the first reading of bill number 5944. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. No citizens have signed up, so any alderman wishing to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I want to echo what Larry just said a little while ago and thanking Ted and the people that worked on this for coming these recommendations and the hard work they put into it. It's very greatly appreciated.
Madam Clerk, would you please now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Approve.
Simmons,
Approved.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.
You. Item number 10 is bill number 5945. It's an ordinance. Would ask the Madam Clerk to please provide introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5945, an ordinance accepting the proposal of the Salvation Army for the provision of services to provide temporary public assistance and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Right. You've heard the first reading of bill number 5945. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's
Second.
a motion. There's a second. All right. No one has signed up to speak to this. Any aldermen have any additional comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Approve.
Simmons,
Approved.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.
We are ready now to move on to item number 11. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 5946, an ordinance approving payment of incentive fees to SMG Branson Convention Center's Management Company in accordance with the contract.
Begin with a staff report from Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. On December 17th, the Finance and Capital Committee met to review the incentive fee for the Branson Convention Center for fiscal year 2019. Typically, we don't do it that late in the year. It's usually done around August, around the middle of August, once the audit has been shared and publicly talked about. So we did it this year because the audit was late, and due to COVID and the late selection of the audit, that's why we had to do it as late as we did. We did roll the funds so that we could pay the incentive fee, so that what I will just mention is that this is the last year. The 2019 fiscal year was the last year on the original contract for the incentive fee. Going forward, 2020 will be the new criteria based on the new agreement that was set forth. So the Finance Committee and the Capital Committee recommends awarding a total of $137,362 as incentive fee for fiscal year 2019, and staff recommends approval. Thank you.
You've heard the report of Jamie Roush. We've heard the first reading of bill number 5946. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second. C. All right. No one has signed up to speak on this issue. Any aldermen have any comments they would like to make?
I have a question just with my newness to the board. Jamie, have they consistently met the performance criteria since 2019? Are they pretty consistent with that?
They are pretty consistent. You'll see that we didn't pay them 100% of the incentive review this time due to one category. There's been a couple of other times where it wasn't 100%, but it's pretty close to it every time. So they have certainly done a really good effort at trying to meet all the criteria and the goals of objectives that was laid out for them in that current contract. That's why I prefaced it by saying that this is the last year of the original contract, and we're going to move forward with new criteria that they are already aware and already working on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Mayor? Yeah,
Yes.
just for Jamie, well, does that have to go back in front of the board for our discussion and approval, or is that staff done?
Are you referring to the contract or the incentive review?
The incentive review.
That it's once it's done with the Finance and Capital Committee, as it was in December, then it comes back as we are doing right now before you, and it'll this will be the first reading, and then you'll the second reading on consent, and then we'll be able to pay them this $137,362, and that's for 2019. And then this next year for 2020 criteria, once the audit is complete, hopefully we'll be on the regular schedule for 21, and it should come back before the Finance Committee, Finance and Capital Committee the 1st of August, and potentially the Board of Aldermen 1st of September.
What I was really referring to are the terms and conditions for performance metrics.
The contract, well, we can bring it before the Finance and Capital. We typically bring it as we start to review, and we send it out like a week or 2 weeks in advance so that you can review it. We'll bring it back before you in that form in September. The
Mr.
other,
Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dobbins?
Alderman Skanes, just so you know, the metrics were actually in the contract that you all approved.
Maybe a refresher might be due.
There you go. We can get you a copy of it.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions or comments?
Real following up on, I think what Bill was saying, Jamie. So was that a real hard target criteria, or was there a little leeway in hitting the numbers?
For the 2019, the one that we're discussing now?
I know we're moving on past it. I'm just wondering.
No, so good question. All of the categories were met at 100% because, and they discussed them at length about the responsiveness and the customer and client satisfaction. On that level, their goal was above a 90%, and their customer and client satisfaction, I believe, was 93%. So that's why they got the 100%. And then the Finance and Capital Committee went on to discuss the goals and objectives, and they did a good job of providing us the outcomes of the goals and objectives that we talked about in that committee. And so there was about a 15% of the 20% reduction. So that's why it's at 85%. So I believe they did a really good job. And according to that 5-year contract, they really made a valiant effort to move forward and complete all of those. But yeah, it was probably a little bit easier than what is coming. So they'll have a little bit of a harder target to hit. How about that?
Gotcha. So moving forward, we'll have a few more stipulations, tighten it up.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think Sam can handle that.
Yes, he can.
Mr. Mayor, just one more question for Stan and Jamie. COVID in 2020 changed a lot of things. And are there any adjustments in there on performance because of the adverse economic and health conditions of the community?
So for this, I'm sorry, Stan, go ahead.
No, it's okay. The actual contract is relevant regardless of the circumstances, so to speak, because it's more based off of performance measures from them and how they did in the actual time frame, rather than some of the generic ones that we had in our previous speak.
And Mr. Mayor, I can chime in and help provide some context if you're willing.
Mr. Lebeck?
Yeah, thank you. The new contract that the SMG, our convention center operators, operating under, the incentive fee is broken down into a number of different components. 20% is based on customer and client satisfaction. 20% of the incentive fee is based on the completion of specific operation goals that the city sets. So once a year we decide, hey, we want A, B, and C to be completed. An additional 20% is based on either increasing gross revenues for the property or reducing gross expenses. Again, that's another metric that we will measure by, and then that's graduated inside the contract on how they do that. And then we have 3 other categories. 10% of their incentive fee is based on the responsiveness of SMG to the city. So our concerns, our desires, and whatnot. So that's another metric the city sets. And then 20% is based on the performance of SMG in providing an increase, and I'm reading from the contract, in unique and independently generated convention center bookings and events. So their incentive fee going forward is tied to their ability to grow new business for the city of Branson. And then finally, we've also included 10% based on feedback from our partners within the city, the Branson Chamber of Commerce, the hotel operator for the convention center, and other partners in the city. So again, we've redone the entire metric by which their incentive fee is being awarded going forward. And this is what the board approved earlier last year. So just to answer and kind of clarify some of those questions that Alderman Skanes had and Alderman C. Thank you, Mayor.
I think that helps. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ready to vote? Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Approved.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 12, it's a bill number 5947, another ordinance. Please provide the information, Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5947, an ordinance approving the intergovernmental agreement with Taney County for the provision of recycle center equipment and operation of a recycling center, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement.
Okay. Begin with a staff report from Chris Lebec.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. If you recall, we had a period of time last year due to COVID where we had unfortunately had to close the recycling center. As a result of that, staff started taking a hard look at the recycling center, and this board was presented with a study session item back on July 28th of 2020 by Assistant Administrator Manning, where we looked at how much it costs the city to operate the recycling center and kind of our needs and purpose behind the recycling center. Since that point, we reopened the recycling center in September, and the city started keeping statistics. And the interesting thing that we learned in operating the recycling center, we started tracking who is using it, is that over 72% of the people that use the recycling center during that period of September through the end of the calendar year are residents outside of the city limits of Branson. So less than 30% of the people that are using our recycling center live within city limits. So all of that information, all of that background resulted in us starting to have conversations with the county about operating a county-wide recycling center. So I worked with county attorney, Director Francis, worked with the county, and we came to basically an agreement today where we will, we're proposing to the board where we will transfer the equipment that currently we utilize to operate our recycling center to the county. And then if the board approves, come February 1st, the county will run a county recycling center with county staff and our equipment. Now, so that's the way the agreement is drafted. In the event that the county decides to stop operating a countywide recycling center, then that equipment per the agreement would revert back to the city. So the benefit to the city is we still have a recycling center for our residents as well as the county residents, but we're doing it at a significant cost savings to the city of approximately $250,000 a year. And with the numbers as a result of COVID, that's something that the staff strongly recommends that this board approve today. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe Director Francis is available as well if the board has any questions for him.
Thank you, Mr. Lebec. You've heard the first reading of bill number 5947. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. No one signed up to speak. Any alderman wishing to make any comments or any discussion?
I got you.
Yes,
Jeff C.
go ahead.
The obvious question is turnaround time, sort of ballpark target date of having this up and going.
Good question, Alderman C. By the terms of the agreement, it'll be February 1st when this will be going in the county. So it's a matter of just the logistics. The county has already approved it on their end. It has to go through this board. Once that happens, then we can transfer the equipment. We have already began the process of training employees and getting them ready so we can hit the ground running. So there's going to be very little downtime with regards to this transfer.
Good, thank you. That'll make a lot of people who reach out to me on a regular basis. And I think that's good. That's sooner than I expected. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Larry?
Chris, are they going to operate it from its existing location? Or are they planning on relocating it?
It's being relocated. That's one piece of information. Unfortunately, I don't have. Maybe Director Francis can aid, but it's going to be operated at a different location because currently it's on city property.
Alderman Milton, the recycle center and all the equipment will be moved up to the transfer station at the county, which is up there on Buchanan Road.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we're in discussions of what a use we can utilize when that's removed.
Oh yes, we've already got a plan for everything there to reutilize it. You bet. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the question goes back for Chris or Stan or Jamie. This $250,000 in savings, does it revert back to general fund? Is it a restricted fund or an unrestricted fund for use?
Let me just kind of caveat that a lot of that savings is employee salary too. So those employees that are currently tied to the recycling center, I'm not speaking for Director Francis, but I anticipate they're going to be reallocated to other areas. But as far as the actual money savings, I think Jamie can probably answer that better than anybody.
Jamie Roush?
Thank you, Chris. And Chris is absolutely correct. And it depends on those employees, where they're allocated and what fund they currently come out of. The transportation department deals a lot with the public works and the streets department. And so I anticipate some will be a savings to the general fund. However, we do have some open positions there. I'm talking with Keith. So it's all about the employees and where they're going to be located and what fund that position will be paid out of.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff.
Probably a question for Keith. I know that there was an alternate location. I think I'll call it out by F Highway out there at one of the highway facilities. Was there pushback of having it over at the transfer station?
No, not to my knowledge. That's where we had discussed with the county commission and their highway administrator, Devin Huff. And so it was ultimately decided to put it at the transfer station.
Yeah, because when I heard that from some people, I said, it's really not that much further. They kept saying that they wanted something more centrally located, maybe even towards the Forsyth area, but that alternate location that I heard about, it didn't last very long, but it was just too close to consider that transfer station as the obvious place.
Yes, that was correct. That was why the decision was made to move it to the transfer station instead of out at the county shed out there.
Yeah, that one. So, okay, thanks,
Yes,
Keith.
sir. Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I have another question. I know we've been talking about this transfer station costs the city $250,000 a year. And Bill Skanes asked the obvious question, with that savings, where that money is going to be transferred and it will be restricted or unrestricted. And hearing that the majority or a lot of that money is from existing salaries, existing payroll for city employees, the city won't recognize a $250,000 savings by reallocating those employees to other positions, right? So the city won't end up with any dollar savings, is the way I'm hearing it.
If I could answer that, actually we will. What they didn't tell you was Keith has several openings in the street department. Those individuals that are at the recycle center are going to be transferred into those positions. So we will be filling those and not backfilling for the recycle center. And I know at least one of the employees at the recycle center has already accepted a position with the county to work at their recycle center. You will see a savings in personnel costs. Part of it will come from, and the reason there's a little bit of confusion there, part of it will be unrestricted, depending upon which pot they go in, so to speak, with Keith to fill his open positions. Some of them may come that are being sent over there to fill those open positions may be paid from the transportation tax, which is restricted fund. So it's those two funds.
All right, any other questions? Madam Clerk, will you please provide a roll call?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The result is 6-0 and it passes.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussions. Thank you for the questions. It's now toward the end of the meeting where we ask for report from individual aldermen. Begin with that, Alderman King.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to start out by telling all of our Branson residents Happy New Year, since we haven't met since the holidays. And I took some time out over the holiday season and had the opportunity to do a ride along with our Branson Police Department. And I cannot brag enough about how impressive they are and how amazing they are at taking care of the people that can't take care of themselves, especially during the COVID holidays that we all experienced. So huge kudos to them. Everyone knows our nation's going through a lot right now. And I like to think that Branson can be a light to our nation. We get a lot of foot traffic. We have a lot of visitors. And if we can set an example of how we treat each other, how we treat our police, how we treat our healthcare workers, I hope that that light could be taken back to visitors that go home and we can set an example. So I really just want to urge everyone for 2021 to be the light that we need this year. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alderman King. Jamie Whitus.
Nothing to report at this time.
All right. Alderman Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year also. And also congratulate Alderman King on her appointment to the 40 under 40. I'm sorry if you were going to do that, but I wanted to do it too. That's a real accomplishment, and not too many of those are from Branson. So we appreciate that, and the publicity we've gotten from it. So thank you. Also, I think we've done a wonderful job of converting these meetings to virtual, and however, it's still difficult for me to do my job virtual. I'm sitting here with 3 machines that I'm looking at them, and in going back and forth between the items, I suppose I'll get used to it as we go forward, but it's hard to switch back and forth and look at the information in a timely manner to make our comments. So I really hope that we get back as soon as we can. And I realize it may be 2 or 3 more months or no telling when, but I would encourage us to look very strongly each month to see if we can get back to actual meetings, because I think the public appreciates it more, and they can still watch and watch on our YouTube channel and see the meeting if they can't attend, but it would give them an opportunity to attend. And I think that this makes us a lot more effective if we are in person. Just a personal opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Simmons. Alderman Skanes.
Yes, sir. I want to also recognize Julia for her being recognized. I think she's an asset to this board. She reads her material. She asks good questions. She always participates. The only thing is, I'm trying to figure out, Mayor, why I hadn't come up with a 60 over 60 group for us to be able to participate with. But I also wanted to echo what she said as far as New Year, Happy New Year to everybody. And Branson can be a very strong beacon for the rest of the United States. We are a great city. We are a great people. And I'll just leave that at that. And I also want to echo what Alderman Simmons says about trying to get us back into face-to-face meetings again sometime in the future. And I understand why we're not, but I'd sure like to see us move towards that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Skanes. Alderman Milton.
Yep, I just wanted to echo the Happy New Year's to our community. And Alderman Simmons, in addition to his concerns about the alderman getting adjusted to this, I believe that there may be an issue of the public also. I mean, I think it's odd that we didn't have one public speaker and we didn't have one speaker on any agenda item. That may be, I don't know if we need to get the word out or make it easier for citizens to participate in these meetings. It's just, I believe that we experienced the same thing in the last meeting. I think we had one speaker, but it should be nice to get community input and whatever we can do to make that happen. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Milton. Alderman C.
Yeah, going last, I pick up on stuff as it goes down the line, but I concur with Larry and Bill and Bob about, I think we lose a lot doing it this way. I mean, body language, just a lot of things having us in the room and them in the room. So I'm all for getting this, back to normal as soon as possible also. So to Julia, I appreciate her comments. They were great, very sound. I'm glad she did the ride along program. So I will dote on our first responders also on the fire we had down here at Branson Landing. Normally I'm on the cleanup end of an event like that, but I actually lived it from first alarm to the actual fire to evacuation. All of our first responders, just first class, professional. Taney County ambulance was on the scene, followed up by PD. Fire department came in, directed us well. It was cold, but we got through it. And it was great to see everything in action. The only thing I would tell Ted is he should have brought us those chicken biscuits and Chick-fil-A and maybe some hot chocolate or something. But other than that, everybody did a great job on that. So real proud of them.
Thank you, Alderman C. Administrator Dobbins.
See, this is where I have more fun because I get to go almost last. Two things. Don't forget, City Hall is closed Monday for holiday. Secondly, the new chamber CEO, Jason Outman, will be here next week, and you all have meetings set up to meet him. Don't forget those. And the other thing that was on my list that I will talk about is we have been working closely with the health department in regards to the issue that is actually causing these virtual meetings. Yes, our rate of individuals that are testing positive is still extremely high, and our death rate is still extremely high for the rest of the state of Missouri, compared to the rest of the state of Missouri as well as the United States. But having said that, there are some, without going into great detail, some promising things that are going to be occurring in the near future that we think will help to start to see some reduction in those numbers. Because I enjoy setting and watching you all actually in the meetings, and I enjoy having the directors present where I can see them as well. But so don't believe that we have forgotten any of that and that this has fallen off the table. And just to kind of echo what Julia said is, it's sure easy to be kind if we just want to do it. So that's all I have to say. Mayor, thank you. Have a good evening.
Alderman Dobbins, thank you. I get to go last, and this COVID goatee is getting way too long. I'm really looking forward to being able to shave it off and stop having to wear face coverings and do all the things that we can get back to some normalcy with. And hopefully there's some good things happening, but it's gonna be a while longer. It'll be March before we'll really know kind of what the actual figures were for the year and how much we were up and down. But what I've been hearing a lot of comments from people is they've had a better year than they thought they would. I don't know if the rest of you all have heard that, but most of them have said they've had a better year than they thought they would, which is encouraging. We here at the city have had a better year than we thought we would. And we'll have that final detail and it'll show that information. But I think there's a reason to have a positive outlook for 2021. We came out better than we thought we would when we faced these issues in 2020. The first time this city had ever faced those issues and our nation had ever faced these issues. The vaccines, the slow of the virus is our focus. We've got to keep trying to encourage people to be involved, to help carry out the safety protocols, and to do the things they can. We will not have an economy at all if people don't come. As we've learned, over 80% of the people that want to come to Branson want to come if they feel like they will be safe. And so we've got to be able to have the things done that we need to do to encourage people to come. If they don't come, they don't spend money. They're not here. And we've got to be able, the first thing, to get them to come. There are so many unknowns, but we can get through this together. I'm encouraged by the fact that we have people who serve, who want to serve and serve our citizens, have servant hearts. And I thank you for that. So the coming year is coming, but for this meeting here, the first meeting in January, we're to that point where we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Third.
Second. That was pretty quick. The second. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and the meeting is adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.